Hi, I'm Steve Selig and I'm the founder of Fit Test, and I'm just going to create this video for people who are not familiar with the application. It is a web-based app. You can see by the landscape view of the application, not suitable for running on a mobile phone, but it will run very well on a tablet or iPad and a laptop. Logging in, I'm just going to add a new client, fictitious client. Make that mail, add the client. So now I can find that client. There's the client that I've just added. We're going to start a new test. Let's start with cycling, and I'll just call that cycle one. Put in some data. You must put in the data at the grey boxes here, or the grey writing here. If you don't, then it will not calculate anything. It doesn't matter at this stage whether the heart rate peak is accurate, or because you can always change it later as you can for the heart rate rest. So I've just putting in some data here. You can also run the data sheet. You can run this sheet during the actual test or afterwards. I tend to do it afterwards because I'm pretty busy during, and it really doesn't take much time. What I'm going to do now is decide on how am I going to work out, because these are individualized tests for all four modes of exercise. So for cycle, I'm just going to make a guesstimate of a level of cycling in watts that corresponds to fairly easy, but not nothing, if you know what I mean. So in other words, in the green zone in terms of ratings of perceived exertion, but if you need to make the test shorter because of lack of time, then you can also you can increase the starting level if you like. I'm going to start at 60 watts, and I'm going to increase for this person by 10 watts per minute. And you would know this. You already have your criterion for stopping. I'll go to 130, 140 will do. And then you must delete the unused rows. And I'm going to start. So I use the 6 to 20 RPE scale. So I'm suggesting that the first workload corresponds to about 9, and then 9 again, 10, 11, 11, 11, 13. I'm just making these up, 14, and finish at 15 out of 20, or about 6 out of 10 for the 0 to 10 point scale. I'm now going to deliberately create an arrhythmia here, and I want to show you the effect of that. So 155 down here was our peak work rate, and we're going to start at 88, 92, 110, 102, deliberately 104, 121, 133, 144. I'll actually make this 137 doing that. So what I've done is deliberately set up an arrhythmia here. And what we end up with when heart rate is either known or pre-measured at 155, clearly that creates a gap here that this person is probably not going to be able to exercise at. So what we do here is we'll now select based on the arrhythmia. I'm going to select to predict VO2 peak based on peak work rate. And we end up with a red dot right at the top of the green line, which is a good way to go. So even though the heart rate peak might have been 155, for example, we might have had 155 here. It makes no difference to the estimation of peak work rate, because it will come in at 24.2, corresponding to 140 watts, 24.2 corresponding to 140 watts, even though the heart rate peak was 155. This is one of the great advantages of this app over some of the other apps on the market. So again, if I went on heart rate, I'm going to get an erroneous estimation of VO2 peak. Now, before saving that, what I might actually, I will save that and I'll go back because we'll go back to the same client. And we've got our test here, and now I'll quickly show you how to generate a new program. At this stage, you could edit the test or delete the test. Maybe I'll show you at this stage how to edit the test. So now we'll go from arrhythmia to rhythm. I'm going to change all these. So this is just like a different client. 10117, 123, 129, 137, 144, and 155. And now you can see we've got linearity. This is more likely a healthy person without heart disease. You're going to get something like this. So that's changed that. But again, this is just me. But even with that, I would probably still go with that method based on peak work rate to land this red dot right on top of the green line versus this method where the red dot doesn't quite land on the top of the green line, but very close. So the change from 24.4 based on VO2 heart rate peak versus 24.2 based on peak work rate, I'm going to accept that. So now I'm going to update that test report. So it's basically like I'm showing you two different clients here for the same test. Go back to the same client, and now we can proceed to develop a new program. And you have a lot of options for program. You've got 5 options based on cycling because that was the method used for testing. So we have cycling based heart rate, cycling based on power, cycling based on percent VO2 peak, cycling based on percent VO2 range, and cycling based on heart rate range. When you get into the other modes, the heart rate methods are no longer valid. So you've got basically the other modes available, but not with the heart rate. So what I might do now is do a walk uphill based on percent VO2 gradient. I'm going to start with 50. This is for a training program, 60, 70, and 80. And we'll say that this person's walking speed can be, just making a guess, 6 kilometres an hour. Maybe I'll make that 5 kilometres an hour, 5, 5, and 5. And then we're going to do an interval training program. So I'm going to make this 50. Just going to show you an interval training program. And then we'll just get rid of all that. You must delete the unused rows, and we'll make all these 80, and we'll make all of the speeds 5. And so the program has calculated gradient on the treadmill here, and we'll just make these 1 minute stages. But as the person gets fitter, we could go 3 minute stages. I'll just show you if the person's very fit. And we've done that, and then we can put in our RPEs. I'll just put them in for 80 as say 14. You could put them all in. These are out of 20. So that's a program. It looks like this with touching 80% from 50%, and then just 1 minute. You could make this a longer walk down period here, or you could even step it down like you stepped it up here. So we'll save that program. We'll go back to the same client. And so now if we want to look at that program, we can go to previous programs. Now we've saved one. It will display here. When we go to there, we can edit the program or delete the program at that point. So that's how I've gone about with cycling. Let's go back to the same client and we'll do a different type of a test. And let's start a new test. And I didn't show you before, but there are 4 options: cycle test, which we've just done, walk test uphill, jog or run test, or step test. I'll just take you through the walk test uphill, but take you through very quickly. I do have some protocols there, but I never use them. So you could just type in here, walk uphill. It doesn't matter. You don't have to type anything there. Walk uphill one. Weight was 88. We'll say the heart rate was still 155 and 56. And then we're doing a walk uphill. So what we do here for an individualized exercise test is establish a speed that they can walk at semi-comfortably. So it's still slightly challenging. And then we're going to keep the speed constant. So what I would do is get this person on a treadmill and look at a few different speeds like this, and up to 6. And then we'll just go gradient, 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 gradient like that. And just suppose the RPE here was 6 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 11. I would say 11 is a bit too fast. So I'm not going to use 11, but these ones are too easy. So I'm going to delete these first ones here. And I've now selected 5.5 as my go-to speed for the entire test. And we'll get rid of unused rows. And now we're going to increase the gradient by 2% per minute. These are all 1 minute stages. Right through my app, it's 1 minute stages. 12, and we'll just make up some heart rates. 92. I'll stay sort of semi in rhythm now, but not completely in rhythm. 111, 128, 129, 137. And we'll make I'll leave the heart rate at 155 at the moment. RPE here will be 8, then 9, 9, 12, 14, 15. Maybe I'll make this 10 like that. And now we've got a fairly big gap there. Now that gap would be okay so long as you knew that this truly was the person's max heart rate. But if you don't know that and they got to 137 heart rate with an RPE of 15, we're probably going to then again do the same thing and base it on peak work rate. And we bring that red dot down onto the green top of the green line, which is the method that I favour and the one I use the most. So we'll generate that test report back to the same client. And now we can run a new program. And again, with the walking program, we can do it based on heart rate if you like. I'll just try doing one on heart rate. So I think we got to 133. So I'll just make this 100, 110, 120, 130, and then just make that 100. Get rid of the unused rows. And the speed was 5.5. And we'll just make these all 1 minute stages just to demonstrate. Maybe I'll leave that at 4 minutes just for demonstration. And this was say 14, 11, 12, 13, and 12. And there's our RPEs. There's our program. So at 130, at 130 and 5.5, we knew that when we had 100 and 155. If I put 155 in there, oh no, that wasn't, it was based on heart rate. 4, I think it was 138, something like that. Yes, it was 138 peak heart rate. That's right. That's what I put into the test. I think it's showing, not showing here because that was the predicted at the top, but when the actual peak heart rate was 138, and that 138 gives us a VO2 peak of 100%, and we try to do that for 4 minutes. So that all of the cross-checking has worked, and we can save that program now, and then we can go back to the same client. And now I'll very quickly take you through the jog program, which is very similar to the run program. We also have some protocols here for jog run, which I don't use. We'll put in some data here, 155, 56. And now, different for jogging compared to the walk uphill. For the walk uphill, we found a constant speed and used gradient to increase the intensity. For the let's suppose we just get them walking at 5, and then 6, and then 7, and then 8, and then 8.5. And now they're jogging, of course. That's a 9, 9.5, and we'll make that 10, and maybe even make it 10.5, and we'll get rid of the unused rows. Now these first two are walking. So we're actually going to take those out because we only want the jogging numbers here, and we're going to use gradient here. No, sorry, no gradient here because we're increasing the speed for the jogging test, whereas for the walking test, we're increasing gradient, and these are all 1 minute stages. I'll make this 16. I'll make that 9, 9, 11, 12, 14, 15. Let's put some heart rates in. Let's go to 138 again. And 94, 106. And we've got a VO2 because of the 155 heart rate. We've got a gap here, and we don't think that this person can actually exercise between the end of the green line and the red dot. So again, and you'll see me do this so often, I'm going to choose this method here to land the red dot on top of the green line. However, if I'd made this 138, just to show you the difference, and base it on heart rate peak, let's see what effect that has. Almost lands the red dot on top of the green line because of this heart rate being 138. If we made that 136, for example, it basically lands it on top of the red dot. No, the green line coincides with the red dot. So this is the method here. So in summary for the jog run, we're entering data from the point of when they start jogging, but we keep the gradient constant. At the end, you could add a little bit of gradient. So we could, if I do this, I'll just show you at the end, if they're running as fast as they comfortably can, you could just throw in a little bit of gradient at the end. And I'll change some of these heart rates now to reflect that. 131. And we'll make we'll just do that method to land the red dot on top. As you can see, we've got heart rates wandering a fair bit because I just made them all up. But the VO2 peak is now 44.8. So you can use a little bit of gradient towards the end. For the walk jog test, I strongly recommend that you establish a good, solid, comfortable walking speed and just increase gradient. So now we'll move on. I don't need to show you how to program from there because it's the same idea. You've got all those options. I will click on this, and if you want to do a program, I'll just show you your options again. So again, you've got these 5 options for jog run. You've got 3 different options for the other methods of programming. Okay, so let's go back to the same client, and we will do the final test will be a step test. And so here we'll put in the weight again. I'll put in that 155, I guess, 56. And the person's height is 182. So it comes up with a recommended step height based on their own height. It's actually 1/8. This would be for a low level client. Let's just assume we have a high level client and we have a step that's 33 centimeters. So we've just got that in our facility. So because this is a high level client, I'm going to go for this. If the client was low level, then I wouldn't be able to use this step. I'm going to have to find something a bit lower than that. But I'm sure you can improvise enough to do that. Now, here is where we do use the standard protocol, which is what I've developed here, and it will insert the number of steps per minute. And what you do is you can put a metronome on your phone or your iPad or whatever, and you can set a metronome at 4 times the stepping speed. So for 12 steps a minute, it is like uh, asking the person to go up, up, down, down, which means the effective metronome speed is going to be 48, and this one would be 56. I'm just putting it in this column just to show you. And this one, for example, would be 120, and this one would be 136 if I've got my maths right. So that's just to show you, you multiply the steps by 4 to get your metronome rate. So now the metronome is sounding up, up, down, down. And for the 120 metronome, it would be up, up, down, down, like that. So I'll get rid of those now. I'll put in some RPEs here. Actually, I'm going to get rid of these speeds I've worked out as too slow for this high level client because I'm using a 33 step. So I'm saying that these are too low. And we're now going to go, I'll make that 8, 8, 9, 11, 12, 12, 12, 14, and 16. We'll put in some heart rates. I'll put in 155 here, see what it looks like. 95, 110, 5. And we've got a nice linear response here. The red dot is just under the top of the green line, so that'll be fine. You could make, maybe this was 154. It doesn't matter. You've got either of these strong methods for estimating VO2 peak. When I base it on heart rate peak, VO2 peak is estimated at 37.0. When I base it on peak work rate, it comes in at 37.2. So it's very close. So that's the one I tend to use a lot. So what we can do now is save that program and go back to the same client, save that test, sorry, back to the same client. And we've got this test. It's unlikely that you're going to program based on stepping exercise, unless someone just wants to do that at, say, at home, which they could do while watching television or something. So it's more likely you're going to do a program based on walking or even cycling. And let's just put in 5 kilometers an hour, 5, gradient 0. I'll just put in a few fives here. It's pretty, not a very fast speed. And we'll just go 2, 4, 6, 8, and 12, and that will do. And then we'll make that 0. It's just a step up program, and we'll make that 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 8, and 1. So there's a stepped up program that looks like that, and that would be individualized. So we could save that program. So back to the same client. So that's really what I wanted to walk you through, to use all 4 modes of testing and then your options for programming. So now I will stop that share.